Hello, welcome to this week's episode of The Big Hit. My name's Elliot Hicks. We got a good one this week. We're really getting into the meat and potatoes of the sports season. We'll start with an NBA preview with Steve Langdon Jr. and Jeff Hart. Move on to an NHL preview with the old hockey guys, Jake Taylor and myself. Then we've got one of our wonderful and infamous racing segments with Michael Surma and Charles Sandis. Stay tuned. You're about to see it all right here on The Big Hit on IUP-TV.
Welcome everyone back to yet another episode of The Big Hit.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, everyone, to The Big Hit.
Welcome to today's episode of The Big Hit. I'm Katie Dodds.
Sports Jeopardy. I'm assuming everyone already knows how to play Jeopardy,
And welcome to The Big Hit's 2019 edition of Scrap for Your City.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the next segment of The Big Hit. I am Jeffrey Hart, and joining me today at the table is none other than Stephen Langdon Jr. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing fine.
All right, we got some great stuff ahead of us. NBA season is just around the corner, and I am so excited. We got some great stuff to be talking about. What an off season, Steve. I mean, there's been so many historic moves. Yeah,
a lot of moves.
I think one of the biggest, I just want to get it out of the way right now, Steve. LA, the battle of LA right now. You got the Clippers with Kawhi and PG-13. You got LeBron and AD with the LA Lakers, purple and gold. It's going to be a great matchup. You know, Steve, I want your perspective on this. Who has the edge in the LA matchup right now?
For this year, I'm actually going to give it to the Lakers. I think that LeBron James, LeBron James is going to show that he's the real deal. Didn't have such a great year last year, kind of a little on the downside. But you add AD, arguably the best power forward in the league, and he's a shooter. He can go. He's a 28 and 12 guy. He's able to shoot. He's able to collect those rebounds. Just a lot of talent on this Lakers team. Biggest question mark I think has to be the center position. Who's going to be starting at center? You got JaVale McGee. You got Dwight Howard. Personally, I think that Dwight Howard's going to start to begin. But I think the minutes are going to be split evenly between the two. But I just think that the Lakers have, right now, the Clippers might have depth, but I think that I like the Lakers starting five a little bit better just because they have LeBron, arguably the best player in the league, and then you have AD. That's just a dynamic duo.
Let me preface my comment by saying I think LeBron is going to destroy the league in the likes of which we haven't seen. LeBron James has had the first offseason in 9 years where he hasn't been in the playoffs. He is going to be rested. And I'm not even LeBron's biggest supporter. I think he's over-glorified, definitely a top 5 player all time. But you have got to be crazy if you think I'm not going to be saying the Clippers. The Clippers, last year, that team had no business being in the playoffs in the West. They won 46 games and they weren't even trying to. They got rid of their best player in Tobias Harris. Now let me rattle off some of the players they got on the team. Lou Williams, who arguably every year should be the sixth man of the year. Montrezl Harrell, another run-up for sixth man of the year. Ivica Zubac, who the Lakers got rid of for a bag of cookies. Then you have Patrick Beverley, Landry Shamet, who I know your 76ers gave up for Tobias Harris. Maybe a little steep there for the price, but you got all that. Then you got Kawhi and Paul George, and let me keep it real. LeBron and AD are a better dynamic duo than Kawhi and PG. Kawhi is, I think he's the best player in the league right now because KD isn't healthy, but Paul George ain't even in the same league as Anthony Davis and LeBron. But I think the biggest thing for me isn't even the depth, it's coaching. People don't take into account. Frank Vogel, when he was with the Magic, not very good, not a very good record, and obviously the Magic don't have the resources to dedicate to them, but look at Victor Oladipo when he went to Indiana. He completely transformed his game and took it to the next level. I don't have faith in him, and not only that, he's going to be looking over his shoulder every minute because of Jason Kidd trying to take his job. And then in the Clippers, you have stability. Ballmer put all the right pieces in place. You got Doc Rivers, a proven head coach, already won a championship. It's a no-brainer for me.
I'm scared for Paul George. He's had injury concerns in the past. If he's able to stay healthy, by far the Clippers are the better team. But I think as far as health issues,
he's not supposed to play it in November. So definitely valid.
Definitely an issue. But I think until he comes back and he's able to prove that he's able to compete at that very high level, I have to go with the Lakers. Just LeBron James, he's going to be fully healthy. I don't think he was as injured as many people thought he was last year. Just trying to rest him up for this big year. Anthony Davis, like I said, he's just one of the best players in the league. And until Paul George proves that he's healthy, he's able to stay healthy, I got the Lakers.
Definitely going to be an interesting matchup. I know I'd love nothing more than to see a Western Conference Finals between both of the LA teams. That would just be a treat for all basketball fans. But moving on to the next segment, the league's really been shaken up this year with, power rankings and who's in charge. Like, I think this is the first time in decades I can't sit and say we have a definitive winner this season. With Golden State now not in the top running anymore, with Clay being injured and KD gone, they're not the top runners anymore. Steve, I want to know top 3 teams, in no specific order, top 3 teams for each conference.
Top 3 teams for each conference. Starting out in the East, I have to go with the Bucks. I think the Bucks are just overall, they just have so many weapons. Giannis, of course, leading the way. I think overall they're the best team as far as the East goes. I gotta put the Sixers. The Sixers and the Bucks are very close with each other. Don't get me wrong, but with the Sixers, I think the big question is who's going to be their shooter. Tobias Harris, he's able to shoot the ball, but is he going to be able to shoot consistently? I think is a big question mark. Joel Embiid, dropping some weight. We all know what he's able to do when he's healthy, but is he going to be able to play to that elite level game in, game out? Ben Simmons, who knows what he's going to be able to do as far as shooting? I saw clips he's been working on his 3-point shooting range. He said that if the opportunity presents himself, he will be taking jump shots as well. But it's just a big question mark as far as that goes. Honestly, the 3rd spot, that's up for grabs. I mean, there's a lot of good teams. Brooklyn is they had a great offseason, but KD is going to be out for a year, most of 100% pretty much at this point. But I mean, is Kyrie going to be able to lead that team? I don't know. I think I'm going to go with Boston as a number 3. I think even with the loss of Kyrie Irving, I just like the young talent that they have. Jason Tatum, one of the best young shooters in the league, if not the best. And I just have to go with Boston for my Eastern Conference.
Definitely some solid picks. And Steve, I think for the first time ever in anything we've done, I'm completely with you on the East. I don't even think it's a competition. Even though Giannis lost Brogdon and some key players, it's still Giannis. They still have a majority of their squad coming back. Obviously, they lost Mirotic. He went to play overseas. But the East is that weak to me. I think this speaks more to how weak the East is. I think the Sixers are going to be a solid team. But out of the 3, I think they're the most questionable to me simply because they don't have outside shooting. They lost J.J. Redick in the offseason. Your best 3-point shooter is arguably Al Horford. Yeah. And unless you think Al Horford is taking 10-plus threes a game, you guys aren't getting production from the perimeter. That's kind of my only quabble with the 76. They're going to dominate the inside.
Oh, the Sixers are going to be arguably the best defense this year.
Absolutely. I mean, you have Horford and Joel Embiid guarding the paint, and then Ben Simmons, who is a great defender when he wants to be. So I have no qualms with that. I think the Celtics are just going to have to learn how to distribute the ball because they have a lot of offensive dominant players on that. But I'm going to transition over to the much harder conference, the West. I can make an argument for, I think about 10 teams in the West being a title contender. I'm going to have to go with, surprisingly, the Houston Rockets. Hear me out here. Mike D'Antoni, regular season coach, everywhere he's gone, his offensive system inflates the numbers, whether it be the Lakers with Kobe, whether it be the Knicks with Melo, whether it be Amari Stoudemire and Steve Nash with the Suns. Their offense has always been inflated. James Harden and Russell Westbrook are arguably the biggest stat stuffers in the league, but they do know how to get the job done in regular season. Both of them have never had problems in the regular season, so I definitely think they're going to be the number 1 or 2 seed going in. I think they'll have problems going into the postseason, figuring out who's going to take them over the edge in the 4th quarter. You're down by 3, who's taking that last shot? Yeah. Westbrook ain't the 3-point shooter. Harden isn't very clutch, so I don't know who you're going to have some serious issues with that, and D'Antoni's system usually works with 1 player, not 2. But the last time they had a healthy, good point guard in Chris Paul 2 years ago, they were the number 1 seed. So that'll be interesting to watch. I'm going to have to, obviously the Clippers, nothing else needs to be said. The team, solid, coaching, just everything. The culture around the Clippers to me just screams a healthy organization. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say one that's going to surprise people, the Utah Jazz. Mm-hmm. Utah Jazz, simply because they are such a defensively stout team, and I don't think people are going to take them as seriously. On paper, their talent I don't think is anywhere near. It's hard for me. I almost want to give it to the Trailblazers. I actually have the Trailblazers as my favorites to win the title because they came so close last year, and they're getting Nurkic back, and the Warriors aren't in their way anymore to the degree that they were before. If the Splash Brothers come back, Klay Thompson's coming back after All-Star break according to all metrics. So the Warriors are big time, but they don't have KD anymore. They're not unstoppable. But I definitely have to give it to the Jazz. You got the Defensive Player of the Year in Rudy Gobert. You have Donovan Mitchell, and now you have a true point guard in Mike Conley, who is an All-Star caliber player. It's going to be interesting to see. Steve?
Yeah, I mean, the West, like you said, it's extremely stacked. I'm going to have to go with the Clippers being in that top 3. I'm listening to them in no specific order because it's just too hard. It's impossible. Number 2, I agree with you. Houston Rockets. They're going to be my favorite team to watch this year. 2 players that average triple doubles. They're capable of averaging triple doubles. And then, of course, Clint Capella, arguably the best defensive center in the league. One of my favorite centers as well. Number 3. That's where it gets tricky. I'm going to give it to the Lakers, though. I don't think the Lakers are going to have a good seed as far as the playoffs go. They might finish like 3rd or 4th, but once LeBron gets into the playoffs, it's LeBron James. It's the LeBron James show. So as far as the Lakers go, I'm going to have to give them the edge. Although, like you said, you mentioned 2 teams to watch out for. Portland's going to be tough as well. Denver, of course, they're going to be in that playoff scenario as well. Watch out for I'm going to watch out for the Thunder, though. The Thunder, I think, can make some noise if Chris Paul is able to do well.
Another team I think people are heavily underrating, the Mavericks. Kristaps Porzingis has put on 15 pounds of muscle in the offseason, and if he comes back at least 80% of what he was before his injury with Luka Doncic, that's a team you got to be on the lookout for. But that's going to be it for our predictions. Finishing up the segment, Steve, who do you have on your MVP watch? Who do you think is going to be the most valuable player in the league this year? Early predictions, who you got?
All right. Well, I mean, when I think of most valuable player, I think of the player that means the most to your team. I think, in my opinion, it has to be Giannis. Giannis, everything revolves around Giannis as far as the Bucks go. If Giannis is having a bad game, there's not many players that are behind him that could really pick that team up. So as far as talent goes, Giannis is maybe second, third in the NBA. But I'm going to have to give the edge to Giannis in this one. Like I said, he's the most valuable player for his team, and that's why I think that he'll get the MVP.
Definitely a solid pick, obviously, having a repeat MVP. But I'm going to have to go with Damian Lillard. I just have faith in this guy. Watching him hit that buzzer beater, and that's not the first time he did it. That's not the first time he's even done that. He did it in the 2014 playoff series against the Rockets. So he's clutch. He's got ice water in his veins, and he's confident. He just has that swagger about him. I put him in the top 3 point guards in the league, heavily underrated. I think he has a point to prove, and I think he wants to show everyone that, hey, you need to take Portland seriously. We are a contender. We are here to stay, and we are going to show you we belong in that top upper echelon of teams in the West.
Yeah, you can't sleep on players like LeBron, and you can't sleep on players like Kawhi. So, those are 2 other players.
James Harden, year in and year out.
Russell Westbrook
Anthony
as well.
Davis.
There's just so many players, but as far as narrowing down the list, those are the main players.
Absolutely, the meat and potatoes. But that'll do it from us here on the NBA. Thank you for watching, everyone. Keep on enjoying the episode.
Welcome back to The Big Hit. That was a great segment from Jeff and Steve, per usual. But, me and Elliot Hicks are back at it at NHL. A little bit of a throwback. This was our forte back when we started here in The Big Hit. But as you know, the NHL season is starting. It will have started by the time you're watching this. Starts tonight. Tip-off is between the Ottawa Senators and the Toronto Maple Leafs. But the big game is the banner raising in St. Louis when they face off against the old Stanley Cup champions, Washington Capitals. And that's just where we'll go. So we miss a lot of time because the Stanley Cup that's battled out over our summer break. So it's not like we can talk about it anytime. So we'll just talk about it here. A little bit too late, but St. Louis Blues, they hoisted the Stanley Cup in Boston, Game 7. Really the underdogs the entire time. the entire playoffs, it was like, all right, well, like St. Louis, they're hot, but can they do it? Can they do it? And they just kept grinding out win. Double overtime, Game 7. Pat Maroon scored a goal again. That was awesome against the Stars. That was an epic series. And Game 7, Stanley Cup final, and the Blues kind of routed the Bruins. I mean, that game especially, they kind of ran away with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, nobody really took St. Louis all that seriously. They were, if not the worst team in the West, one of the worst teams in the West, much later in the season than you hope to be if you want a chance of making the playoffs. And normally in hockey especially, but in general playoffs, it's usually the hottest team that is able to take away a win. It's not always the best team. So St. Louis was really under the radar for a lot of people, except for maybe Brad O'Hara on Sports Talk Live, about the only person who took St. Louis seriously, and he ended up being right. I mean, and that has to feel good for all the fans in St. Louis. They'd never won a Stanley Cup, and they were able to finally get it done. A lot of people, again, counted them out. I even thought the Bruins were probably going to take it, but, I mean, congratulations to the St. Louis Blues is all I can say.
Yeah, the St. Louis Blues, they saved everybody because nobody wanted to see Boston win another dang championship. I'm just sick and tired of seeing them jabronis parade around town like, oh, City of Champions. Listen, I know, but I want to call Pittsburgh the City of Champions. Can you let me convince myself to be content? You know, jeez Louise. But the St. Louis Blues, Ryan O'Reilly won the Conn Smythe, MVP of the playoffs, and he was just hungry for it. Everybody thought it might have went to Bennington because Bennington played fantastic. He was kind of their heart and soul of the team. But Ryan O'Reilly, you just saw, that was a great story. He just looks like a hockey guy. You know, he's got the missing a tooth, got the flow, got the beard. That's just a man right there. That's a specimen. And he took over that series. He really did a lot for the team to get the win. Obviously, why he won it. It was kind of one of those championships that's like, did the best team win? No, they didn't. The best team didn't win. The St. Louis Blues were not the best team, and it was good for the sport of hockey because it just shows like any team can win the Stanley Cup. They were dead last in the standings January 1st, and then comes June, they're the world champions. That was a great story, really, through and through. I like any team can win the Stanley Cup, so. Team that last year that was not on the radar, what do you think what team can make some noise this season?
I think it'll be the Florida Panthers. You know, Florida, they did a whole rebranding a couple of years ago. They had Roberto Luongo for a good few years, a great goaltender. Now he's retired. Florida just really hasn't been able to get things going. They let two of their more underrated players go to the Vegas Golden Knights in the expansion draft, and Jonathan Marchessault has been great there the past few years. But Florida was able to make a lot of good pickups. They picked up Mike Hoffman in the offseason, but the biggest one to me that I'm going to focus on is getting Sergei Bobrovsky from Columbus. And Columbus, again, another team that was under the radar for a while, but Bobrovsky was really, I guess any goaltender really would be the backbone of a team. You know, you have to have good goaltending if you want to get anywhere in the NHL. That's part of why Vegas did so well that first year, having Marc-Andre Fleury. Anybody with a good goaltender has got a great shot. I think another reason why St. Louis was so surprising is Jordan Binnington coming out of nowhere and playing very well, almost kind of like Matt Murray when the Pens won those Stanley Cups. Anyway, Florida Panthers, they were able to get Sergei Bobrovsky, a very underrated goaltender, very good goaltender, had a lot of good years in Columbus, and now I think he's going to be able to be the main reason why Florida is going to be able to get themselves back into the playoffs this year. Yeah,
100%. I agree with you 100%. And you know what? I was hopping on the Florida bandwagon last year when I was supporting them for Scrap for Your City. I had to just hop on that bandwagon. But they were on the come up for sure. Bobrovsky, he was not happy in Columbus. It was clear he wasn't happy in Columbus. He wanted out of there. But another huge acquisition that everybody is forgetting is Joel Quenneville. The 3-time Stanley Cup champion coach is on behind the bench for that team. And that is fantastic for them. Great coach, great goalie, and Barkov, I'll talk about Barkov later, but might be MVP of the league next year. So if you get talent like that, I think the defense can be good. They'll definitely come up. The Atlantic Division is kind of garbage, but with this young talent, I think they're really trying to make some noise. So that's one team. Another team, I think, Vancouver. I think they can make a push. They're not going to make the playoffs, but I think they're going to be significantly better. Injuries kind of plagued them last year. It was Pettersson. He got hurt. He was Rookie of the Year. He was fantastic for them. So I think in Vancouver they can get a few more pieces together and actually turn out a decent season. Well, we did a little bit too late of a reaction, so let's do a way too early prediction, Elliot, and let's talk about the two teams you see duking it out for the Stanley Cup this year.
Well, I think I'm really tempted to go with one of these Eastern Conference powers, like a Tampa Bay to win the Cup this year, but we saw it for years with Washington before they could get the Cup, where they always choked, and Tampa Bay would always choke. I'm going to go with another Eastern Conference team to win the Cup, and that's the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs, as Steve Langdon Jr. like this prediction, they've got an absolutely stacked roster. Lots of young talent there. John Tavares is entering his second year with the team. They've really got what it takes. They were able to keep Mitch Marner, right?
Yep.
They were able to keep Mitch Marner in the fold, and they didn't really have any big losses on that team. They were able to keep all the talent in there, and I think that team is who you're going to see taking the Stanley Cup.
Oh yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, Elliot. I love the young talent for Toronto. I definitely think that they just get over that hump. If they're playing the Bruins, maybe they're going to choke again. I don't know, but I don't think Mike Babcock's the type of coach that's going to be losing like that. So, great coach behind that bench. Like you said, tonight, actually, they unveiled the captain of the team. They haven't had a captain in the last few years. So, it's going to be really interesting to see if they give it to Matthews, if they give it to Tavares, or Marner, for that matter, who they give it to. Frederick Anderson is a great goalie there. I really think they can make it on the other side of the pond, or Mississippi, rather. Let's go to Colorado. I think Colorado... I love the young talent. I can't get enough of it. Nathan McKinnon, fantastic hockey player, one of the best in the league. I would say top 3 hockey players in the NHL right now. And they were really Game 7 against the San Jose Sharks. They were pretty close to knocking it home and playing the Blues in the Western Conference Finals last year. Upset the Calgary Flames in the first round. They snuck into the playoffs. I think they're going to have a better season. And I just like the young guns. I like the speed. I like Cale Makar on the back end for the Colorado Avalanche. He might be hurt, but he's obviously not going to be hurt the whole season. That's huge. Great skater on the ice. He really just makes it look easy out there. Young kid. They're the youngest roster in the NHL, and so I just love the young guns coming up and making some noise. So I'm going to have Colorado against Toronto, and we'll just stick on some predictions. So we got the Hart, the MVP, the Vezina, best goalie in the league, and the Art Ross, the point scorer. So let's hear your Hart, Elliot. I want to hear who's going to win MVP.
Well, I've got the same winner for 2 of these trophies, both the Hart Trophy and the Art Ross Trophy, and that would be Connor McDavid. I think that the Edmonton Oilers very well could be the team to end up in the Western Conference, end up making the Stanley Cup final as the Western Conference team, because I think this is McDavid's year. People have really given McDavid a lot of credit for what he's done the past few years. Still technically a young gun, hasn't been able to lead the team to really much success at all. I think this is the year. I think you're going to see Connor McDavid really blow up, and basically he'll have to carry the Oilers on his back for the most part to get them pretty far. But I think that kid has got the talent to do it.
Oh yeah, I'm not the biggest Connor McDavid fan, but I can't deny the skill. It's just he just makes everybody else look like they're playing a different sport out there. Honestly. He is so fast. It's amazing. It's awesome to watch. So I have him winning the Art Ross in the point race for sure. Nobody's going to catch him. I mean, especially if he's playing with Draisaitl. Like Leon Draisaitl is a top 10 center in the league, and they just take him off center off the second line and put him on the wing. That's like Crosby playing with Malkin. That's literally what it's like. You can't beat it. You have the best goal scorer in Leon Draisaitl. You got the best player in the league in McDavid. So that's deadly for points right there. But as for the MVP, I'm giving it to Alexander Barkov. He had 96 points last season. He's the most underrated player in the league. Player voted on year after year. They say Barkov, he's just unreal. He started hitting stride at the end of the year, and we said they got a good team around him now. Finally, him and Huberdeau, they're 2 fantastic players. I think Barkov's going to actually, because they're going to make the playoffs, Florida, and he's going to be the most valuable player for that team. As for the Vezina, I would say Ben Bishop for the Dallas Stars. Dallas, he looked fantastic. He was the reason they were keeping it. They almost beat the St. Louis Blues, double overtime. Kind of like a Craig Anderson type of deal against the Penguins. It was like that team that didn't deserve to be there, but the goaltending was so good. They peppered him like 60-something shots that game, and he had like 60 saves. So I think this year he's just going to keep it strong. He was great in Tampa. He's going to be great in Dallas. They got Joe Pavelski now, the old captain of the San Jose Sharks. So with a great roster, I think great goaltending. Ben Bishop's got that on lock too.
Yeah, and for me, it's very tempting to go with Sergei Bobrovsky. He's going to enjoy life more now down in the Florida beaches. If Matt Murray has almost a rebound year, you could call it with Pittsburgh. If Pittsburgh's able to make it far, and I do think they have one more run in them with Crosby and Malkin and sort of the old guard of sorts that are left. Whether it's this year or not, I'm not sure, but Matt Murray could easily be a future Vezina winner. And Andrei Vasilevsky with Tampa Bay, I mean, obviously had a great year last year. That team was probably the best regular season team in NHL history and probably the worst postseason team of all time in league history. But any one of those 3 guys I'm comfortable with. And I'm comfortable with Ben Bishop, too. Very good goaltender. I could easily see him winning it as well.
Goalies are one of those things where it's just whoever's hot that season's hot. Right. And there's a plethora of fantastic goalies in the NHL.
Yeah, so sometimes it's hard to pick out the guy who'll get hot. Like, remember Andrew Hammond back 4 years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Nobody knows who he is or where he's at now, but the guy got 20 wins and 1 year for Ottawa. So sometimes you really never know who can get hot in the right season. And someone who we probably didn't even mention is going to win all 3 of these awards.
Yeah, exactly. Well, 100%. Well, here on the Big Hit's all things right, no things wrong. So sit down, shut up, and drink a beer.
Welcome back to The Big Hit. It's our final segment of the day as we're here to talk about any and all forms of racing with our 2 experts here, Michael Surma and Charles Sandis. We're going to start with some Formula One, where Lewis Hamilton is still just absolutely killing it. He just won in Russia, and with 5 races left in the season, he's got a massive points lead in. We're pretty sure he's going to win the championship, but can anyone catch him? We'll start with you, Charles.
Well, to be honest with you, since he's paired with Mercedes, I do not see any way and possibility that anybody could catch up with him, because Mercedes has some of the most advanced cars available to Formula One. Not only that, but they have some of the best drivers. They're actually so good that they're pretty much rivaling each other rather than rivaling the entire teams. So I feel like in order to make Formula One competitive again, I think we have to sort of change its metagame a little bit. Perhaps we could start introducing a weight class in the 2020 season, perhaps, where with every race that a Grand Prix victory is held, your car gains 25 kilograms. And with every loss, it loses 25 kilograms. So that way it could build a little balance. So that way, for people who don't seem to like Lewis Hamilton, we could have more wins from other people, like with what happened with Vettel a couple weeks ago at the previous Grand Prix. Or we could have it so that way Lewis Hamilton has a bigger challenge, because apparently he's so good, he's going to need a little bit of a handicap if he keeps going this route.
Lewis Hamilton even wants to change because he's winning so much. It's not even a challenge to him anymore. I mean, he's won 9 out of the 16 races already this year, over half of them. And Valerie Bottas has 2 of them, 2 for Mercedes, so that's 11 out of 16. I really don't see any way anybody's going to catch up with Hamilton, but the next best driver, I believe, right now is Max Verstappen based on his consistency.
So something that's going to happen in 2021, McLaren is going to move from Honda over to Mercedes. How's that going to impact their future?
This I absolutely approve of, because as we know, one of McLaren's greatest cars of all time, led by none other than Ayrton Senna, was the McLaren MP44, which had a Honda engine. So I see this as nothing but a great thing, because where they are right now, they are absolutely horrible, and I'm ashamed to say that because I love McLaren. I want to see the good old days of the MP44 revived. That car was so good, it only lost once. It almost had a perfect dominating season. They need to bring a successor. They need Gordon Murray to work with Honda to build this engine and the chassis. It will be brilliant. This will be the 1980s all over again.
I mean, you look at McLaren and look what they did to Fernando Alonso in the Indy 500, where he just completely missed qualifying for the race, and he wasn't even close to speed with the last qualifier got in. This is really a really great move for McLaren, since they haven't been competitive in years, even when they had Fernando Alonso and Jenson Button, 2 F1 world champions, with them. They were only running 7th, 8th, 9th. They were never competing with Mercedes or Ferrari or Red Bull. So I believe this is a really great move for them, and hopefully it will make F1 way more competitive than it has been.
Yeah, and from what it sounds like, that's what we all really want to see.
Oh, most definitely. I really want to see another MP44, but I feel like one thing that it might be missing is a great driver, because to make a great F1 team, you need a great pit crew for one. You also need a great car, and you need a great driver, which currently Mercedes has all of that. McLaren, on the other hand, they have the drivers and the team. I just feel like they don't have the car. But once they get that, it's going to give them like a huge advantage. I think they could pretty much rival the whole thing, maybe even Ferrari at this point. You just never know. We have to wait and see.
Yeah, and that will be pretty cool to see. So we'll stick with some open wheel racing and go over to IndyCar, where Joseph Newgarden just won the championship. There were 4 guys who could win it at the end: Scott Dixon, Simon Pagenaud, Newgarden, and Alexander Rossi. Newgarden led the points basically all year and was able to take the championship. So is he the new face of IndyCar?
No. He's really close because of how much he wins and how consistent that team is, but honestly, Alexander Rossi is the most talented driver in the whole series, and he's gaining popularity, which only gains popularity for the series, which only boosts the ratings up for the TV station. So I really see Alexander Rossi improving this next season, and I really think he'll run better at the short tracks, because the short tracks have been his problem at Iowa and all of those other ones. And they bring in Richmond this year against Pocono, where he's run well on super speedways and they're taking that away from him. But no driver passes better than Alexander Rossi on any circuit, anywhere you go, and I don't see any driver that's more talented than him right now in IndyCar.
I mean, his passing game is good, don't get me wrong, but he's going to need to up the stakes if he's ever going to get competitive at this point, because we're getting near the end of the season. We're like 3/4 of the way through, so he's got a lot of catching up to do if he wants to get up there.
Cool.
Yep, he certainly does, but that whole Andretti Autosport team needs to step up their game, because they have hurdle over with the other team that isn't even with them, and next year they will be together, so maybe you'll see Hunter Ray and Veach actually boost up their competitiveness and actually show themselves more consistently.
All right, so before the end of the segment, we'll go back to some NASCAR, where they've just completed their second overall run at the Charlotte Roval Motor Speedway, and Chase Elliott was able to get the win this time around. Drove pretty much headfirst into a corner like we saw at the end of last year's race, and fell all the way back to 37th, but he came back to the lead. And you also saw his teammate Alex Bowman, who qualified second, wrecked his car in the last minute of final practice, wrecked on lap 1 of the race, came back to finish second. Whose comeback effort was more impressive, and how in the world are these cars still able to finish first and second when they're as beat up as they are?
Well, I know Chase Elliott, when he hit that wall, he only hit the
softer part of the wall, basically. He didn't tear the front of the car bent, but it was not as torn up as it normally would be when you drive the car.
Yeah, he only hit the hood,
wall,
which meant that his nose was totally clean, so he got good air in it, and he was still able to run well. And he came back from 37th place in the last stage to finish in first. And that was pretty amazing, but I got to tell you, the more of the underdog story here is Alex Bowman wiping out himself on the backstretch chicane there on the first lap with Bubba Wallace again, and he seems to be having trouble with these non-playoff Chevy guys. I don't know what it is, but you need to start working together, because you're still not winning enough races to make it to the championship level, and that's what you have to do, instead of calling the other racers out for stupid stuff like, oh, I was in the way. Well, move out of the way then, and then you won't get wrecked. So then a playoff driver can actually make the effort to go up there and score the most points that he can to move on to the next round. Bubba Wallace, you need to move out of the way and get out of the way when playoff drivers are right on your rear for 3 and 4 laps. Just move out of the way. You realize you're the slower car, get out of the way. Bowman made a terrific effort to come back and steal places at the end with the last restart from Kevin Harvick and Martin Truex Jr. I'm telling you what, that whole 88 team, they make a bunch of mistakes, but somehow in the end of it, they seem to be contenders for the win and contenders for moving on to the next round. And I believe Bowman is truly the showman, no matter what Bubba Wallace says. Like his quote says here, he don't like the race, he just runs over everybody. Wallace told this to NASCAR.com as he left the track. He gets to lap 1, and then he runs over me and the 3A Austin Dillon into the back chicane. We're back there in the trunk, man. Just take it easy for a lap. Easy for a lap. You realize this is the last race of the playoffs, round of 16. You have to go get it now. You can't just wait forever just because it's the most challenging track there's ever been at the Roval. You can't just hang back there forever and then, oh, you missed the playoffs, even though Newman wrecked on the turn there. So you need to move out of the way. Anyway, as he continued, he had a fast car and he just run over us, shoot us through the chicane, and then we get a penalty for it. every time he gets to me, he just runs over me. Well, he wouldn't run over you if you move out of the way on the backstretch and the NASCAR turns, or you wouldn't wreck on the chicane. And Alex Bowman, after the race, got really dehydrated and had to sit down on the pit road. So then Wallace Jr. comes up, and then he sprays Gatorade bottle on his face. So then he says afterwards, smooth move of playing the stick chord so I couldn't bust his mouth. You know what? Just calm down, move out of the way, and you can talk to each other once he gets back healthy, like normal people do, instead of you being in outrage all the time because nobody gets out of your way. Well, guess what? You're with a team at Richard Petty Motorsports that hasn't been good since Richard Petty last drove it in 1992. So yeah. So Bowman says he admitted that he made a mistake on the first lap, but then he got flipped off by him 4 laps. So anyway, Bubba Wallace, stay out of the way of Bowman the showman, and then you won't get wrecked.
Well, Sermon, that was one heck of a rant, and you always have great opinions about NASCAR and about the Roval. Unfortunately, we're out of time here for today's episode of The Big Hit, so thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned to IUP-TV.